Welcome to the Habits Seminar. So I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen and let's get this thing rolling. So those of you who have, I like engagement. I like when you are responding and you're in the chat box and you're popping off and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I'm taking away. So feel free to take yourself off mute at any point in time. Brittany just muted everyone. But yeah, this is interactive. Oh, thanks for being here. All right, so I'm gonna keep the chat screen open. Sharing my screen. There we go. Can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up if you can. Thumbs up. Excellent, excellent. I have Catherine, Deborah, Danielle, and Yves, Olivier. All right. Healthy habit building, the 4 secrets to building better habits. So what I want to say about this before I dive into the presentation itself is that I've realized over the pandemic that one of my zones of genius is actually self-discipline, organization, and self-regulation. I mean, this isn't a surprise given that I'm an executive life coach, so I better have some of my stuff together, right? But for a long time, I've actually been creating very positive habits. And in speaking with my clients and speaking with other entrepreneurs once the pandemic hit, I realized how set up I've actually been in my habits, in my routine, in being able to be flexible in whatever environment that I'm in. So some people were asking me, well, what's your secret? How do you stay sane and successful while all this stuff is going on? And so I wanted to try to demystify what habits actually look like at its basis, how to create good habits, how to reduce self-sabotage, and then provide some real-time examples and tips for how you can create habits for yourself. So, hence the 4 secrets to building better habits was created. So a little bit about myself. I'm an executive life coach. I was trained in life and leadership coaching. I mainly coach millennial leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who I term unfulfilled overachievers. So individuals who just want a better life, even though they have the drive, they have the ambition, but they can't quite get the purpose and the direction right. I'm also on the board of education for the International Coach Federation in Philadelphia. I'm a professional certified coach. I'm actually on the way to get my master certified coach credential, which is super cool. I was a former leader in accomplishment coaching, meaning that I was a faculty member and I taught coaching. Basically, to summarize, I'm a coaching nerd. I love human behavior. I love talking about why we do what we do and how we can do it better. So I am going to be, as I always am, offering a ton of freebies and takeaways at the end. So please feel free, as usual, to drop your email in the chat box so that I have it and I can send you all of my goodies and freebies afterwards. And I'll let you know at the end exactly what those things are. Yay, thanks, Danielle. All right, let's get going. So why is this important? Well, if you're here, there's already some reason as to why habits are important for you. But the pandemic has really rocked our safety and disrupted our habits, right? You know, there's all of this economic uncertainty, there's job loss, there's health loss, there's complete unknowns, work changes. There's been a lot of complaints about complacency because we're just not pushed to go out in the same ways that we were before. Money issues, health issues, there's a lot of stuff going on that drives up stress. And stress reduces our ability to do things like follow through, focus, keep good habits in place, the very things that actually create more safety and security. It's even harder to focus now than usual because of all these unknowns. And when we're stressed out, that adrenaline-fueled stress sends us into our amygdala. It sends us into fight, flight, or freeze, even if it's just a little amount. And this creates a survival mentality. So basically, we're not thinking straight. And by the way, if you are feeling more exhausted, more fatigued than usual, it's probably because there's an amplified amount of stress that you're not addressing and managing, and a lack of coping mechanisms, security, ways to soothe your nervous system. So if you're stressed, if you're tired, this is also a great place to look, forming healthy habits. As I've kind of hinted at, stress is very self-perpetuating, right? So it turns off that rational part of our brain. We don't think straight, and then we rely on habits that are automatics that might not actually be helpful. Like, I'm going to eat this chocolate because I feel stressed. And then you get stressed out because these bad habits come to bite you in the butt. Like, you gain weight and you have lower energy, and then you feel judgmental about yourself. So there's this loop of stress that we want to interrupt. Creating healthy habits helps to do that. We are creatures of habit. So let's talk a little bit about anatomy, habit anatomy to be specific. So habits are formed when routines are done enough times that they become automatic or subconscious behavior. So there's 3 R's to habit anatomy. There's a reminder. Like, for instance, I'm tired. You get up in the morning, I'm tired. We have a craving. I don't want to be tired anymore. We respond to that behavior with routine. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee. And then there's a reward. Oh, I'm less tired. So I'm sure a lot of you here can probably relate. Put it in the chat box, or just kind of raise your hand if, like, this is you. You have a craving, you're tired in the morning, you grab a cup of coffee, you're like, oh, great, I don't feel as tired. But then after a little while, this caffeine kick doesn't actually serve you anymore. It is not the best habit, and interrupting that habit takes some time and intention. So consider that you've actually conditioned yourself, just like Pavlov's dogs, to automatically reach for something to immediately quash the issue that actually is not optimal. This is the habit loop. This is how habits get created, for better or worse. This is also why it's so important to start to become conscious of your habits, because not all habits are totally optimal, like caffeine addiction. Yeah, Melissa knows what I'm talking about. Deborah does too. So we can emotionally and behaviorally get conditioned for these things. BJ Fogg, who is the author of Tiny Habits, who I actually talked to a while ago, really nice man. He's the head of the behavioral department at Stanford, I think. He's the author of Tiny Habits, and he says, all you need to do is give motivated people the ability to act differently in that moment, and they will be able to interrupt their behavior. So yeah, give motivated people the ability to act differently. Strong habits are built when we can create new action from that reminder. So one thing that I actually worked on, because I did a Whole30 last month, Brittany would be so proud of me. She's the owner of On Point, by the way, who's hosting this. I did a Whole30 last month, and instead of reaching for coffee or caffeine when I'm tired, I started reaching for cold water. And there are many reasons to stay hydrated, but one of them is that when we're tired, we're oftentimes dehydrated and not necessarily tired or hungry. So I've been reaching for that cold glass of water instead of grabbing caffeine. Now, there's a lot of examples of this. That's just one of them. But another example of a time when you might want to be interrupting your habits is, let's say you're speaking to a spouse or a loved one that you lived with and you get annoyed, right? Our instant reaction is to, interrupt the conversation and leave, or fight, start to blame, start to get defensive, all those things. But instead of responding and reacting habitually like we would, a different response and interruption of that habit loop is to take a big, deep breath, sort your thoughts, and respond rationally. Me and my husband have very much enjoyed that new habit. Another one is, instead of reaching for social media when you're bored, you stand up and walk around the house for the day. For about 60 seconds, instead of reaching for social media all day. TikTok might not be the best habit, reaching for TikTok. Yes, walk around your house the whole day. I'd actually love to see that, Danielle. All right. So how do you actually create habits? How do you create strong, healthy habits for you? So quick piece of data. On average, it takes 66 days to build a new habit. So new scientific discovery, not 30 days, but 66 days, a range between 1 and 8 months, which is, that's pretty good. So the thing that I want to say about this point is to have patience with yourself. Creating healthy habits is much more about practice and progress than about perfection. So another thing to note is that sometimes creating healthy habits is about trial and error. For instance, when I first started coaching and I launched my business, I was really into my morning routine. But I got very judgmental about myself when I couldn't journal, meditate, visualize, exercise, do yoga. I think there was a couple more things in there every single morning, right? I was like way overloading myself. And so I tried a couple of different things and found that actually going for a walk, doing a meditation while I was walking meditation, and then reading a book was the perfect morning routine for me. That was my habit. So some of this takes some trial and error. Usually though, success leaves clues. Your clues for your success and clues for others' success. So take a look at what routines and habits have stuck in the past for you, even if it's in the distant past. Almost every single successful business person, executive, celebrity, any big successful person attributes their ongoing success to their routines and healthy habits. People like Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, Michelle Obama, CEOs of Nike, Disney, LinkedIn. And I was reading this book called The Talent Code, and in it, Daniel Coyle says that he studies high performance all over the world. And he says that greatness isn't born, it's grown. And everyone can grow with the right mix of practice, motivation, and coaching. So this is really about a combination of attention, the attention that you pay to your habits, and your intention, your practice, your repetitions. So lastly, before we get to the 4 secrets, I want to attribute a couple of things to my own habit formation. So first of all, I was an athlete at a very young age. At age 12, I started playing travel soccer around the world. I actually played soccer with some of the girls on the Olympic team. And I have an odd amount of self-discipline ingrained in me. So there's that. Many of my habits are formed from years of practice, many years of practice. I have some natural motivation for excellence and resiliency, but a lot of it has been practice and intention and getting support. Lastly, a lot of my knowledge and philosophy around habits comes from this guy named James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits. Got his book on my bookshelf. Also met him. Wonderful guy, very tall. But I want to credit a lot of what I learned in my habit forming philosophies to him. If you haven't heard of that book, it's incredible. He also has a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of freebies, great newsletter as well. Highly recommend signing up for his newsletter. It's very, very interesting. All right, enough about James Clear. What are the 4 secrets to healthy habit building? Number 1, focus on habit identity. The second is to simplify exponentially. The third is to prioritize process over performance or over your goal. And lastly, rely on accountability over motivation. So we'll dive into these 4. So the first secret is habit identity, or identity-based habits, as James Clear calls them. So a lot of what I do as a coach and in my one-on-ones is to really take a look at who the person is being behind their habits. What are their perspectives? What is their energy? Who are they thinking about? How do they think of themselves as they go about their own behaviors? So the thing about habit identity is that it's not about creating a better goal, it's about creating a better lifestyle. The number one myth to meeting your goals is that you think that you have to change overnight, right? There's a big myth of success that it just happens overnight. But what we don't see are the years of practices, the years of knowledge accumulation, the years of support. So what we really need to change is our lifestyle. That's what has habits stick. Focus on who you're being, how you're thinking, how you're perceiving. So I'm going to explain this, this graphic over here. Again, this is James Clear's work. So he breaks down what it really looks like to transform your habits, and it all starts from your identity. So here's how it works. Usually when we want to achieve a goal like getting fit, we often start with what we need to do in order to get there as quickly as possible. Like, I'm going to run 5 days a week, or I'm going to do a 10-day juice cleanse. And what we're looking to get to is that outward appearance, right? I want to lose 10 pounds. But then we get so attached to that goal happening as quickly as possible, preferably yesterday. After we choose that goal, we focus on how we want to perform what we need to do, right? Again, that performance, the actions we need to take. But there's something underneath the habitual actions, and that's your identity. We actually have to flip the script on creating new habits. So for any behavior you're looking to change, there's an identity that forms that behavior. This is what forms habits naturally. A lot of habits that we form are completely unintentional, but we form them from who we think we are. So if we think that we're lazy, we're going to form lazy habits, and they're all going to be unconscious. So this is why habits don't stick. This is the biggest reason right here. We spend no time forming a new identity, forming a new lifestyle. And then all our time is spent trying to force ourselves to do the things that are actually counterintuitive to the old identity. Now, I'm not going to go deep into health, but one of the things that I teach and train in coaching is that when we really want to get fit and get healthy, the place we have to look is our relationship to ourselves, our self-love. And oftentimes when we change our relationship to ourselves, we change that identity. Like, I'm someone who doesn't miss a workout. I'm someone who prioritizes putting decent stuff in my body that treats my body as a temple, then your behavior will start to change. So I have some other things on this. So if you have ever read The Secret or anything by Joe Dispenza, you'll know that thoughts become things. It's quantum physics. Our subconscious thoughts drive behaviors. 10% of life is what happens to us, and 90% is how we respond to it. Our thoughts create our responses. Now, I could spend a lot of time on this. I'm going through it pretty quickly. But the thing to keep in mind is that if you think you are, for instance, a lazy person, a procrastinator, you will think like a procrastinator or a lazy person, and you'll do what you need to in order to confirm that, find ways to procrastinate. Conversely, if you start thinking like someone who stays away from things like sugar and alcohol, you'll behave like a healthy person does. I did a Whole30 last month, and I started to really treat my body differently. This is called confirmation bias, if you've heard of it before. Donna says she saw the movie on Hulu or Netflix. Yeah. So confirmation bias is where if you think that you are one way, you will find reasons to provide evidence that you are that way. All right. So if you want to achieve a goal, you have to become the person with the lifestyle that meets that goal. So for instance, what is the identity of the person who loses 20 pounds and gets fit? James Clear says, you might be the type of person that doesn't miss a workout. You're much more interested in the process than in the performance. So here's the practice for you. Choose a goal. So let's say it's becoming healthy. Then ask yourself, how do I need to behave in order to meet that goal? What would that type of person do on the regular in order to make that goal live and actualize? And then you want to start proving that new identity right with the small wins you accumulate. Here's the last thing that I'm going to say about this. Every action that you take is a vote for the type of person that you want to become. Every time you act in accordance with that new identity, consider that it's like a ballot voting for the type of person that you want to be. We think that if we miss one day or one habit or one time or even 2 times or 3 times, it's fine. Because if you get back on the horse, that's a vote in the right direction. And just like votes, majority wins. All right. Secret number 2, simplicity. So BJ Fogg says, make the habit so easy that you can't say no. In his book, Tiny Habits, he says, if you want to start a flossing habit, start by just flossing 1 tooth every day, just 1 tooth. Pick up the floss, floss 1 tooth, put it down. Make it so easy that you can't say no. And then increase the habit in very small increments. So if you want to exercise more, start with walking 100 steps a day. That's it. And then increase daily by 100 steps. Break it down as necessary. It's annoyingly simple, I know. But that's the whole point. Keep it super, super simple. The simpler the process, the more likely you'll stick to it. So for me, when the pandemic hit and the Fitler Club closed, I don't have my gym anymore, right? And, you know, I struggled like any other person would. I'm like, oh, well, you know, I wish I had my classes. I wish I had my gym. I wish I had my bike and my weights. But what I started to do was just go outside. I put on my running shoes and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to take a walk, maximum 45 minutes, but minimum 10 minutes. And I started to accumulate stamina and a habit around going outside. And I started running again for the first time in, I want to say 15 years. I developed a running habit simply by setting a small goal for myself, making it so easy, just going outside for 10 minutes and increasing that. So your homework is to pick a new habit that you want to start and then ask yourself, how can I make this behavior so easy that I can't say no? Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about are keystone habits. This helps to simplify things. Keystone habits are a routine or a ritual that naturally puts your life in line, and it creates a cascade of good behavior. So for a lot of people, this is exercise. When you happen to be exercising on a regular basis, a ton of other things end up happening. You get up earlier, you eat better, you sleep better at night, you decrease your stress. Oh, Danielle, that is such a worthy goal. Not turn to sweets when you're emotional. And then I'm sure that there's probably a cascade of benefits from that too. You start to turn to healthier things and then you feel better and then you're less stressed. There's an incredible amount of results and positive consequences that happens when you can identify a keystone habit, something that if you change, other things will be radically different. So some examples of what this actually looks like. For some people, it's writing. Yeah, it's journaling. For some people, it's meditation, that if they meditate daily or consistently, everything else changes. Walking, exercise, making your bed. Making your bed is one of those things that is oddly satisfying because you do it, it's the first thing in the morning, it creates integrity, and then it allows you to create momentum of achievement. Let's see, some other things, deep breathing, volunteering, having gratitude practice. There's a lot of keystone habits that if you implement that one thing, other things will happen. Gentle cycling. Oh my gosh, Melissa, 2 months alcohol free. Good girl. So lastly, if you're having trouble deciding what strong habits look like for yourself, ask yourself, if I did this every single day, what would things change for me? Would things be radically different? All right. Secret number 3, process over performance. So I don't know if you've seen this image before, but I love this. And I love bringing this especially to my leaders and my other entrepreneurial clients, because we think that success just happens, that we clap our hands and it happens. But what other people don't see are all of the things that have to happen underneath it: the failure, the persistence, the sacrifice, the resiliency, the habits, the work, et cetera, et cetera. This is one of the biggest myths of success, is that success happens overnight. We're so attached to the goal. And the thing is, success is not an event where you do it and then it's done. It happens and it's a forever breakthrough, right? No, it's actually something you have to commit to for the long run. And a lot of times just telling yourself this and really embodying it and getting it. It's going to be uncomfortable. This is a long run. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Sometimes just by getting that, it'll actually help to transform your thinking. So get more focused on the repetitions and the process and the work rather than the event or goal itself. So with this being said, focus on things that you can sustain. To do a grand thing, like to write a book, you don't need to do grand things daily. You just need to be consistent. So instead of writing a chapter of your book daily, try writing twice a week. Try writing a paragraph or a sentence every single day. So in your zone of long-term growth, it actually requires little effort daily. All you need is little efforts every single day in order to achieve long-term growth. So there's a quote: how was Rome built? Brick by brick, right? You lay one brick at a time. So lay one brick every single day. Now, another thing to really focus on the process instead of the performance is to reward yourself for the practice. So if you want to, let's say, write daily, then every single time you sit down and write a sentence or write anything, the Panda Planner, I wonder if that's like the 5-minute journal. So you want to start a writing practice. Then after you write one sentence, say something out loud that motivates yourself, that is inspirational and complimentary, like victory or success or go me. Throw a fist in the air, like, yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that by celebrating yourself out loud or physically with like a fist pump or a Wonder Woman pose or whatever it is, you actually start hardwiring your brain to form this habit. There's a kick that your body gets from the physical celebration, and it is much more likely to do it again. The reward is a very, very important part of the habit creating process. So I want to talk a little bit about willpower, and this actually feeds into the fourth secret. Now, a lot of times when I start working with someone around forming new habits or creating more consistency around something, there's this idea that you need willpower in order to do this, or you need to be motivated by something. The thing about willpower is that there's a limited amount of it. So it fluctuates through the day. There's a fixed capacity and bandwidth for how much you can force yourself to do something. And the more times you do it throughout the day, the more you deplete yourself. It's like a muscle. So willpower, similar to other muscles in your body, gets fatigued. With the help of things like simplicity, repetition, environment, it will get stronger. But because of this, focus on the process instead of forcing yourself to do things. Keep things small, keep things sustainable, make it really easy to start so that you don't have to constantly force yourself through things. If people have heard of Mel Robbins, great writer, great speaker, she talks about using acceleration energy in order to start something. That it's actually hardest to start a habit than it is to maintain it. The more you do a habit, or the longer you do a habit, it actually gets much easier to continue that habit. The hardest part is starting. And what she recommends is counting to yourself down from 5. That's like a count off or a countdown, and then doing the thing. So she recommends saying to yourself, okay, I need to get out of bed. I need to get out of bed. I'm not getting out of bed. Let me count to myself. I'm going to get out of bed at the count of 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get out of bed. So she talks a lot about acceleration energy and needing that little burst in order to motivate yourself past that initial hump. And then it's much easier to continue. So in sum, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, motivation usually happens after you take action and not before. Action begets motivation, not the other way around. So, accountability, number 4. I said this to a client about a month ago and I wrote it down. Follow through is hard when accountability is absent. So the coaching profession is born from the need to be accountable. It's why this secret gets its own secret. It's why, accountability is its own thing. A coach partners with clients through a thought-provoking process to elicit their greatness and hold them accountable to what they truly desire. And you cannot stick with a habit unless you have a support system with yourself, your environment, or with others. So there's an important recipe for accountability that I've found myself. It's equal parts self-empowerment, which is, re-empowering yourself, reminding yourself of why you're committed, talking yourself through it, that sort of thing. It's some part structure, having the framework, having reminders, having a schedule for yourself. Equal parts partnership, doing it with someone else, having a coach, having a buddy, and equal parts practice, repetition. So here's the first simple way to create massive accountability. Oh, thanks, Eve. Yeah, forcing yourself into things, it does not work. It's not sustainable. We have to figure out other ways to do it. So when it comes to accountability, the first thing I always recommend to my clients is to create an intention. It's actually scientifically proven that writing down and saying out loud a specific intention can increase your success by 3 times. Hundreds of studies have been done about this. And what this looks like, what an intention looks like, is saying, I will do this on this day at this time in this place. So for me, when I notice that I'm not exercising on a consistent basis, I have to put this in my calendar. I have to write it down. I have to time block it. I have to plug it into my calendar. This is my intention setting. It has a specific time. It has a specific place. Am I going to go to the gym? Am I going to do a home workout? Am I going to go for a run? It has a time and it has a date. So if something is important to you, pick a date, choose a place, give it space in your life. By scheduling and having an intention, you're psychologically creating a commitment to follow through rather than relying on feelings or motivation, which are unpredictable anyways. So lastly, in accountability, I want to talk about support structures. These support structures that I have are not mysteries. They're not anything that you probably haven't heard before. They're a framework, though, to give you bumpers to stay within. Bumpers like bowling bumpers. It keeps you straight when you want to get off track. And accountability here is really about making it difficult for yourself to not get back on track when you start to stray. So here are some ways to do this. The first thing is to make a plan. When I start working with a VIP client, the first thing I do is sit down with them and draft a project plan designed to create direction, accountability, and an end goal. What do you want to create in your time together? Make it smart, make it specific, write it down. Second thing is to set boundaries for yourself. Schedule a time in your calendar. Practice gently saying no to things that creep up. Marie Forleo, who's a celebrity coach, says that if it's not scheduled, it's not real. I happen to agree with her. Another way is to create reminders everywhere: phone reminders, calendar reminders, post-it notes, any way to, tell yourself and remind yourself of this thing that's important to you. Keeping powerful statements around is also really helpful. Affirmations are actually scientifically proven to increase serotonin and push our brains to form new clusters of positive thought neurons. Super, super cool. So affirmations actually wire our brain to form new identities. Affirmations are a fantastic support for when you want to create a new identity. And lastly, create some accountability buddies. Enroll your spouse, your friends, some teammates, hire a coach, join a group. There's so many ways that we can do that. So I love this. Stephen Covey wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Accountability breeds responsibility. New goals don't create results, new lifestyles do. And all the things that we've talked about so far is creating better lifestyles and environment to get things to stick so you can be responsible in your environment. All right, doing a quick time check. Okay, we're good. So let's talk about self-sabotage. Yes, let's, Lisa. So the number one reason why we self-sabotage is that we forget we have choice. Deborah knows what I'm talking about. This is taught in the coach training program that we went through. And Eve knows what I'm talking about, Eve Olivier. Oftentimes we forget that we are in the driver's seat. We believe we don't have a choice over our actions, which is ridiculous because the only things that we can control in this world are our actions and our perspective. So understanding and really getting this, we are in the driver's seat. That's the key. And then you can start to empower putting things into place because you firmly believe that you can get back into that driver's seat. And when we climb back into the back seat by default and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm a victim to these things. I can't control my actions. What's wrong with me? We can actually recognize this and get back into the driver's seat. That's the best visual I have for myself. When I feel like I'm victimized by something, I'm in the back seat pretending like someone else is driving. No one else is driving. I'm driving. So all other reasons of self-sabotage really fall under this one. It's this idea that we are responsible and understanding that we can be responsible for our actions. Let's get to some other ones because it'll be fun. So with that said, there are 7 common areas where we self-sabotage and where sabotage is most visible. In our subconscious stories, our lack of clarity, when we get off track, when things are too complicated and we get overwhelmed, when we're in an environment that causes distractions, if we're relying on willpower or feelings to get us started, and if there's a lack of accountability and support. So these are the 7 common areas that I see as a coach to where people sabotage themselves. So what do we do about this? The print is a little bit small because I tried to just squish everything in there, but I'll go through this. So all 4 secrets that we went through before are designed to slay these self-sabotages. And here are some ways to interrupt it. So if subconscious stories is causing self-sabotage, identify your identity. What is the identity that is causing counterintuitive behaviors? And if your goal is, let's say, to get healthy, to be connected, to be active, to reach out on social media when you don't want to be powerful, then create an identity that is that thing. I am the type of person that ... fill in the blank. Number 2, if there's a lack of clarity, like, I don't know why I'm doing this thing, identify the payoff to why you are doing that thing. What is that thing? Even if it's bad, even if victimizing yourself just allows you to be right that you can't have what you want, that's a payoff. You get to be right and safe. So we want to replace habits instead of eliminating them. So if we want to replace a belief or replace a bad habit, we have to put something in its place. Nature abhors a vacuum. We have to replace anything that we eliminate and remove. So number 3, getting back on track. And again, I'm running through these really fast. If you are interested in breaking this down, make sure that you reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to set up a sample session together and we can work through it. Getting back on track. Oftentimes we think that habits are an all or nothing mentality, and we stay in that resignation, right? Like we fall off track once, one day, 2 days, a week, a month, whatever it is, even years. We think, well, you know, we're resigned to, this is the way that it's always been. I've really screwed up this time. I'm just going to keep going because it's easier. Remember, every single action is a vote for the person you want to be. So get back on track. Get off the judgment bus. Environment and distraction. So I'm going to talk about environment in just a second. But the thing to note here is that oftentimes human beings will resist normal. We resist creating an environment that supports us. And instead, we end up creating environments that allow us to deviate from what really matters, like having soda in the house when you want to be healthy and you want to drink more water. That's silly. Number 6, relying on willpower. We talked about this. Make it easy. Make your habits easy to start and do. And the last thing, accountability. So create some intentions, create support structures, get a buddy, get a coach, someone to help you, someone to remind you, get you back on track. And as we head into the next slide, I'm going to close my blinds. So you're going to see me multitasking. Ready? So let's talk about the 10 habits of successful people. Now, the number 1 habit of successful people is what? If you can guess it, what is the number 1 habit hack for successful people? I won't give you too much time to guess. It's environment. So if you change your habit, you have to change your environment. And what does this mean? So environments are the single most important thing that form habits. Oftentimes habits are formed as a product of our environment by default, by automatic. The thing is, it's really, really hard to form a good habit when your environment is saying you shouldn't form that habit. Again, you know, if you're looking to get healthy, but your house is full of junk food, then that's sending signals that you should be eating junk food. It's really hard to eat healthy when you're surrounded by that. So make it easy for yourself. So this is a big form of self-sabotage. So consider that when you are switching environments, the same habits will not apply. So for instance, during the pandemic, when many people, cat in the way, when many people switched to virtual from a workspace, there was an immediate decline in production, in performance, right? Now, part of this was simply because of the chaos that happened and, you know, trying to set up their workspace, trying to figure out new processes, whatever it was. But a lot of it is because we switched environments and our habits didn't catch up with us. And I'll talk more about this later. I have a whole section about better workplace habits. But the bottom line is design a better environment, and this leads to new habits and results, which looks like, you know, automating good habits, creating natural support structures, going with the flow. BJ Fogg likes to say, design your environment for laziness. So find ways that drive you from bad behavior and promote good ones. So think of the habits that you want to form, like eating healthier, eating cleaner, not reaching for that chocolate like Danielle says she's not doing anymore, going alcohol-free, whatever it is. Make sure that you design an environment to make it hard to drive bad behavior, like putting the junk food on the top shelf. If you want to form a flossing habit, leave your floss in the sink. For work, if you want to be more productive, have a space that's just for work, that is away from your bed and your kitchen. So these are just a couple of examples, and I'll talk more about that later. So here are the other 9 habit hacks of successful people. And I again put up something by Stephen Covey. These are actually his 7 habits of highly successful or highly effective people. So a little bit different than my habit hacks, but there's a lot of congruency between what I'm talking about and the philosophy behind what he talks about. So habit hack number 1, design an environment that's conducive to the lifestyle you want. Number 2 is create a visualization, meditation, or breathing practice. Mindfulness. Mindfulness, oh my gosh, so many benefits. Create daily affirmations. So this is the identity forming. I cannot underscore this enough. There's something about programming our subconscious thoughts on a consistent basis, even if we don't believe the affirmations. If we say it, if we write it down, it will eventually change your neural pathways. Exercise, any sort of movement, gets your body going, changes your own physical environment. Massive benefits to that. Journaling, writing. I know several people in the group chat talked about their own writing. Time management, so being intentional about how you use your time. The 7th one is taking constructive breaks, having free space in your calendar. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about creativity and free space. Find joy every day. Find things that make you happy, that light you up. Donna knows what I'm talking about, right, Donna? And Christy? You guys are so joyful.
Yes.
Number 9. So this is an interesting one. Have consistent bedtime and rise time. And I know that, it's not always easy, especially if you have kids and families and pets, and sometimes stuff happens, but be as consistent as possible. It's a great habit. Lastly, reduce technology. And I know this is hard in a pandemic. I'll talk about habit hacks in just a second around this. I want to share a couple of examples of some strong habits and strong routines. So Tim Ferriss, if you've heard of Tim Ferriss, has 5 morning rituals to get him in a productive state of mind. He makes his bed, he meditates, he exercises, he drinks tea, and he journals. Tony Robbins also uses a morning routine to start his day off right. These are his keystone habits. So his include a cold shower, breathing exercises, and meditation. Like I said, meditation, huge. Meditation, exercising, those 2 things. So the lesson here is that none of these things should come as a surprise. And if it does, awesome, I'm doing my job. But if not, that's fine too. The point isn't to wait for motivation to spark you. The point is to do something small, easy, and useful now and automate that. Make it as easy as possible. Donna needs a meditation tutorial next. I can send you some links after this. All right, so let's talk about better workplace habits. And I'm gonna run through these just so that we have some time for Q&A. So I actually provided a whole other webinar called 7 Methods to Master Working Virtually. This is going to be a very simplified version. And I found this great image online that talks about the 10 daily habits of most successful entrepreneurs. And the 7 methods line up exactly with the 10 habits that I found here. Better workplace habit starts with environment, right? Talked a lot about this. Create a separate workspace, no exceptions. Have a Zen den or a Diva den that promotes a fun, colorful, exciting work environment, even if it's just one happy picture or a diffuser or a candle or something. I'm going to talk briefly about the role of technology. I could probably create a whole webinar just from this, and I want to give you a couple of data points. So 65% of Americans sleep with their phone next to or on their bed. 70% of emails interrupt people within 6 seconds of arriving. 70%. On average, it takes 64 seconds to resume work after email interaction. And roughly 50% of daily interruption is self-inflicted, like opening up Facebook, looking out a window, texting a friend. So technology is disruptive. Oh, bye, Melissa. She has to hop to another Zoom meeting, speaking of technology. But here's the thing. We need to reduce our stimuli. We have so much stimulation all the time that we're distracted and it's hard to move forward. We live in a very noisy world. So given that, what we can do is design better habits that actively take control so tech is a benefit and not a distraction. And here's some easy ways to do this. Now, there's actually a lot of apps out there that help to eliminate distraction of technology. Something called AdBlock Plus, Freedom. Freedom is actually a way to block websites over a given period of time, like Facebook or Twitter. And let's say you really need to work on this one project and you keep getting distracted by TikTok. I think someone mentioned TikTok before. You can actually use this app to block TikTok for, let's say, 2 hours. Set a timer for it. And yeah, it's amazing. Something called a newsfeed eradicator. This is helpful for Facebook. So those are some helpful apps that I've found. A couple of other ways we can reduce the disruption of technology is to remove all unnecessary apps from our phone screen and desktop, put our phone on silent if we're working, put our phone in the other room. Lots of ways to do this. Another workplace habit, and again, I created a webinar around creating the world's greatest routines, morning, post-work, and evening. But routines prime your brain to start work. I actually have a freebie that I'm going to give away at the end of this called the warm-up ritual, how to take action when you just don't want to. And the warm-up ritual is a way to prime your brain to get started. It's a way to create that acceleration energy that Mel Robbins talks about. Of course, time management and time expansion techniques are really, really necessary. I also do a lot of work around this with my leaders and executives. So some time expansion techniques are the Pomodoro method, meaning you set a timer for 25 minutes, you work for 25 minutes without distraction, and then you take 5 minutes off. And you chunk down your time to create more intention and attention. Time blocking is also another way to do this. That's what I use. I block out time in my calendar and I devote it to that particular thing. I have different colors, it's color coded, it's wonderful. It's like a Lisa Frank binder, reminds me of high school. Another method is to eat the frog. There's actually a book called Eat the Frog, which means do the toughest thing first in the morning. So your creative project, exercise, whatever it is. The app is called AdBlock Plus. All right. Movement. So throughout the day, of course, we talked about exercise being important, but you can do this throughout the workday. Get up and stretch. Actually, a great way to have better workplace habits is simply improving your posture. So even in your seats, if you sit up straight, if you relax your shoulders, if you lean back, act as if there's a string pulling you up to the ceiling, it immediately wakes you up and helps you to focus. It's a great hack. But take breaks, get up out of your seat, walk around. Helps to improve focus. Lastly, generate joy for yourself. This is a great habit. Great habit, because if you're not generating joy, what are we doing? So take breaks throughout the day, learn new things, have things that you're looking forward to, find projects you enjoy, master the ability to partner with people, to play, to laugh, to smile. And did you know that playtime and being goofy and having empty space is actually directly linked to creativity? So some of the most creative people have the most fascinating hobbies, they have free time, and they have a lot of toys around their desks to fidget and to play with. So take an active effort to eliminate distractions. All right, I know we're nearing up on time. If you have to hop, that's totally fine. But I wanted to end us with practices. Take a screenshot of this. Again, if you haven't put your email in the chat box, please do so. But practice makes progress, right? We have to take some things on if we want to generate new habits. So choose a couple of these practices and take them on for yourself. Develop some identity-based practices. Pick a new habit you want to start and make it so easy you can't say no. Find your keystone habit. Reward yourself when you practice. Notice what time of day you have the most energy and choose your toughest or most creative practices then. This will answer your question, Donna. So if you're not a morning person, you don't eat the frog first then. Maybe you take on the second toughest thing or the third toughest thing, or maybe that's when you do your admin. But find what works for you. But most importantly, what support do you need to follow through with your habits? Make note of it right now. What do you need to follow through with your habits? All right, now it's over to you. So, what are you taking on and what are you taking with you? Donna took on a few screenshots. Oh yeah, I'll have to make sure that I get the recording from Brittany so that I can send it out to the people that aren't a part of On Point. So any key takeaways? Anyone feel like sharing? Sounds like someone's off mute. You're welcome. That's a really great tidbit. You're committed to the outcome, but not necessarily the performance of the identity. Rewarding yourself with progress. Totally. I love the idea of saying like victory or success to yourself. It's just kind of cute and exciting. One of my prior clients developed a practice of doing a dance break after he hits milestones, like getting up out of his seat, doing a dance break, recording it, sending to some people because he's awesome like that. Jeannie told her husband to give her back her panda planner. That's awesome. Yes, Danielle, we're going to have a victorious dance break tomorrow on our call. Plan it out. Recognizing that reward can be so many things besides food. Yeah. Awesome. Kiss your brain. That's amazing. Jeannie, we have to talk. I like you. All right, friends. So gifts and takeaways. I love providing value. This is why I do these webinars. I want to provide value. I want to help. I want to serve. I want to support. It's my life's mission. So again, if you haven't already provided your information, please do so. This is what I'm going to be giving you. So a free copy of my warm-up ritual, the presentation slides, a free 60-minute power session on creating identity habits. I have a Facebook group that has a ton of information and resources, etc. And I also, because I'm a member of James Clear's community, I have a secret chapter to his book called Atomic Habits in Business. Very, very secret VIP status. Yes, Deborah, yes. So I'll leave you with this. Too many people judge their progress by the scoreboard instead of by their learning. Doing a hard task once is great. Doing it 100 times is freaking heroic. So treat it that way. Treat yourself like heroes.
Yay! Yay!
Thanks, Deborah. I love having you on these. You're so encouraging. I love it. Well, thank you everyone for coming today. I hope it was valuable and of service. It's lovely to take myself off of off of screen share and see everyone's beautiful faces. Any questions, anything to share before we wrap up?